welcome back to SparkBC Hot Topics. I'm Erin Riva, owner and CEO of SparkBC, and on the line we've got three of our SparkBC experts. We've got Dave Chevalier coming at us from Chilliwack. How you doing, Dave?
Good, thank you. You?
I'm doing really well. And we've got Don over on the island, Don Ballard. How are you, Don? And we've got Ted Gilbert from the Interior BC, Penticton. Looking good, Ted? Nice to see you
everybody.
again.
How you doing?
Good. So today we are going to be talking about armored cables in Section 12 of the code. And I understand you've got a picture that you want to share right away.
I do. I have a picture and an installation that didn't pass. The contractor had to go back and fix it up. And you know, these little hot topics I think are great for getting it out to the trade, where these little tricks make sure you don't have to go back and correct something, get a reinspection fee on top of it, and lose the labor and time that it took to correct it when your guys could have done it for you right in the first place.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, let me go ahead and make you the host. You can go ahead and share your screen with us, and that's what we're talking about.
So, can everybody see this picture?
Yep.
Excellent. So this was a small food court, and there was two contractors involved in this food court. One contractor was required to run a panel, a feeder and a panel to each one of the food court units. And then each unit owner or leasee could hire their own contractor. So you actually see two different installations in here. So typical steel stud work. We got armored cables of different kinds. What I wanted to point out here first is that the one contractor actually did the job correctly. This feeder here, you'll notice, is actually on the outside of the studs. But to protect this cable, he put some can strut on there and some P clamps on there, and you can see how the cable is well stood off and isn't going to get damaged when they drywall this out and get hit by screws or anything. So I had no problem with that job, and I passed that. Now, in the very next stud space next to it, you can see now where this contractor ran some armored cables and a lot of BX. We'll talk about both of these. But the thing that I picked on right away was, check this out right here. He actually ran this right up against the nailing surface on the steel studs. And as all of you know, there is no way that armored cable is going to stop a gyprock screw, particularly when it's actually held in place by another cable. That gyprock screw is going to go right through that. So let me hand it over to my colleagues here. And Dave, John, what do you guys think of this here? It's got to be something that needs to be fixed, right?
Well, you either have to move the ACW over to get 32 millimeters from the edge, or you have to find another way of protecting that ACWU.
Yeah, running it inside the steel stud space is not a good idea to start with. You're always better to run it like they ran these BX cables on the outside of the stud space, so that it leaves the interior volume space of the steel stud for screws and supports and other things like that. Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that. Don, what do you think? I would have failed this right away. Would you?
Yeah, absolutely, Ted. I'm looking at it and thinking, yeah, I mean, it's too bad he never did the same type of installation as contractor number one did, or you would have approved it, and I probably would have approved it too. So yeah, absolutely. You have to make sure those cables are well back from the edges of those studs as the code requires you to do so.
Yeah, I mean, he ended up, the contractor ended up putting some brackets across the side here. He pulled all these cables out, and he put some brackets across so that he wasn't inside the nailing space, the screwing space of these studs here. And that way he was able to keep the studs back and away from the potentials getting screwed on by a gyprock screw here. So Yeah, that was that. And one of you guys pointed out about all the bundling going on here. What's that up on?
Yeah, I had a question about that. That's, kind of one of the first things I seen was also, besides the cable, the ACWU being close to the stud, was that he's got quite a couple of pretty big bundles of AC90 there. And as we know, Ted, I think you might be able to bring up the rule under 4004 sub rule 13. That
Got it right here, buddy.
Yeah, 13, where it requires multi-conductor cables where they're installed at a distance greater than 600 millimeters to have a correction factor applied to it, right? So in other words, it's going to heat. Those conductors are not going to be able to carry as much current as one that isn't in contact. So definitely, what do you guys think?
Well, I think you're correct on that, bearing in mind that on a commercial job like this, you pretty much have to consider those cables as being continuously loaded. A little bit different on the residential side of things, but in this case, where we've got a lot of cables, they're feeding a lot of equipment in this food room, the code would require that we consider these to be continuously loaded, in which case this rule would definitely apply, and you'd have to go to table 5C to see what the derating factors are going to be for these. Absolutely, Dave.
Right. So I think it's a good question to ask yourself when you do these types of installations. What are the loading on these multi-conductor cables? And man, I better bear in mind that I may have to try to separate these conductors out a bit. And I mean, obviously an easy way to do that would be to simply put a support between the two studs and basically spread those conductors out, right?
Yeah, that would work just fine. I've even seen some electricians out there, you guys know who you are, that have actually used the steel wire and have actually made fancy little brackets and sort of run the wires across and just twisted them so that they're all standing out like this in the middle of the wall using the tie wire that they can. And anything that spreads them out, like you say, Don, would be perfect.
Yeah, cool.
So just to summarize, we got that other rule here in section 12. And so this is the rule we're talking about today, concealed armored cable installation. So where that armored cable is run through studs, joists, or other members, it shall be located so that its outer circumference is at least 32 millimeters from the nearest edge of the members, or protected from mechanical damage where it passes through the holes in the members. Dave, what could be used for mechanical protection?
A protection plate could.
Okay. So in the case of this, I guess he could have put a heavy steel gauge piece of strapping down here, but then he wouldn't be able to get the drywall screw in through the plate. So that probably wouldn't work very well.
No, or you'd have to build the wall out a bit more and lose more space.
Right, just so you get your 32 millimeters.
Yeah.
All right. So all you electricians out there, keep it in mind when you're doing steel stud work, you really don't want to run your armored cables inside the space created by the steel stud. Try and keep it on the outside. If you must, put some strapping on so that it's going to provide that clearances that we need, meet that 32 millimeters. And I think we've got this one wrapped up pretty good. Aaron, can I hand it back to you and take this done?
Absolutely. I just wanted to thank you guys for the discussions. Always great to see your faces as we do each week, and really appreciate your input on this. So if anybody has any questions about this issue, we can leave a comment down below or send an email to us directly at info@sparkbc.ca. And come please join us at our SparkBC community that's available online as well at sparkbc.ca. Love to hear from you there. So take care, guys. Catch you next time.
Love those comments. Send them in.
You
Bye,
betcha. Take care.